In this video, we'll be diving deep into one of the most intriguing and, at times, unsettling ideas that have shaped our modern world: nihilism. Maybe you've noticed it too, the creeping sense that life feels more uncertain, more directionless than ever before. Maybe you've even caught yourself wondering, what's the point? What does any of this mean? Is there a greater purpose? Or are we just aimlessly drifting in a universe that doesn't care? Well, you're not alone. This feeling, this mindset, has a name, and it's something that has been steadily growing in our society. Today, we're going to explore how and why nihilism is on the rise, what it means for our lives, and, importantly, how we can navigate through it. Whether you're struggling with existential questions yourself, or simply curious about why so many people seem disillusioned with the world, stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll have a clearer picture of nihilism's role in shaping our modern reality. And, who knows, maybe even a bit of hope in the face of it. Defining nihilism. Before we dive into how nihilism has risen to prominence, let's take a moment to define what it actually is. At its core, nihilism is the philosophical belief that life is without objective meaning, purpose, or intrinsic value. It suggests that our actions, our desires, and even our moral systems are ultimately pointless because the universe itself doesn't offer any inherent meaning. Now, nihilism isn't a new concept. Philosophers have been wrestling with it for centuries. The term itself comes from the Latin word nihil, which means nothing. But it was really in the 19th century that nihilism began to take shape as a major philosophical idea, thanks in large part to thinkers like Friedrich Nietzsche. Nietzsche, in particular, was concerned with the implications of nihilism. He famously declared, "God is dead," not as a triumphant statement, but as a warning. He saw that as traditional values, particularly religious ones, began to fade in Western society, people would be left with a kind of moral and existential vacuum. Without a higher purpose or universal moral code to guide us, Nietzsche worried that society would collapse into despair and meaninglessness. Now you might be thinking, okay, but that was the 19th century. How does this apply to me? The truth is, while nihilism may have started as a philosophical concept, it has slowly made its way into the fabric of modern society, and that's where things get interesting. Why nihilism is on the rise today. So why does nihilism seem more relevant today than ever before? There are several key factors that have contributed to the rise of nihilism in modern society, and to understand it fully, we need to break these down. The decline of religion. For much of human history, religion has been the bedrock of meaning. It gave people a sense of purpose, a moral framework, and an understanding of their place in the universe. However, in many parts of the world, especially in the West, traditional religious beliefs have been declining. More people are identifying as non-religious, atheist, or agnostic than ever before. When religion fades, so too does the sense of an overarching narrative, an explanation for why we're here and what we're supposed to do with our lives. Without the certainty of a higher power or an afterlife, many are left grappling with existential questions they previously didn't have to consider. Scientific progress and technological advancements. Another factor is the incredible progress we've made in science and technology. Now, don't get me wrong. These advancements have brought about countless benefits, from longer life expectancies to the convenience of modern living. But at the same time, they've also contributed to a sense of disillusionment. As we've learned more about the universe through science, many of the mysteries that once filled people with awe have been explained in rational, often mechanical ways. The more we understand, the more the world can sometimes feel cold and indifferent. We're tiny specks in a vast universe, and that can be a hard truth to accept. Technology, too, plays a role. Social media, for example, constantly bombards us with information, often creating feelings of isolation or inadequacy. The constant connection can paradoxically make us feel more disconnected from genuine human experience. Political and social instability. In recent years, it seems like the world has become more chaotic. Economic crises, political polarization, environmental disasters, and global pandemics have created an atmosphere of uncertainty and anxiety. When institutions we once trusted start to crumble, or when the future feels so uncertain, it's easy to fall into a nihilistic mindset. After all, if everything is unstable and fleeting, what's the point of striving for anything? The pressure of individualism. In today's society, we're often told that we are the authors of our own lives. The message is, you create your own meaning, you define your own purpose. While this idea can be empowering, it also comes with immense pressure. What if we don't know what our purpose is? What if we can't find meaning on our own? This pressure to constantly be striving for personal success or fulfillment can lead to a deep sense of inadequacy. And when we feel like we've failed, nihilism can creep in. Nihilism in pop culture. Now, it's one thing to talk about these societal changes, but how is nihilism actually reflected in our everyday lives? One of the best places to see the influence of nihilism is in our pop culture. Movies, TV shows, music, and even memes. In recent years, there's been a noticeable trend toward themes of meaninglessness and existential dread in popular media. Take a show like Rick and Morty, for example. It's a science fiction comedy, but at its core, it explores deep nihilistic themes. The show's protagonist, Rick, is a genius scientist who sees the universe as utterly pointless. He believes that nothing we do matters, and while he goes on wild adventures, there's always this underlying sense of hopelessness. But it's not just Rick and Morty. Movies like Fight Club and American Beauty also explore the idea that modern life is hollow and devoid of real meaning. Even superhero movies like The Dark Knight grapple with nihilistic villains like the Joker, who embodies chaos and rejects any sense of order or morality. And then there are the memes. Nihilism has found its way into internet culture, where the absurdity of life is often laughed at through dark humor. Phrases like, everything is meaningless, or we're all going to die anyway, have become punchlines, allowing people to cope with their existential anxieties through humor. But here's the question. Is all this just harmless entertainment? Or is it reinforcing a deeper nihilistic mindset? The danger of falling into nihilism. Now, it's important to note that nihilism itself isn't necessarily bad. It's a perspective, a way of looking at the world. But the danger lies in what happens when nihilism leads to apathy, cynicism, or despair. When we start to believe that nothing matters, we might stop caring about our actions, our relationships, or even our future. This can lead to a sense of paralysis, where we feel like there's no point in trying because, in the end, everything is meaningless. Worse yet, some people may turn to destructive behaviors as a way of coping with their nihilistic worldview. If nothing matters, why not engage in reckless or harmful actions? Why not exploit others or live only for short-term pleasures? This kind of thinking can be incredibly harmful, both to individuals and to society as a whole. A world where everyone adopts a nihilistic mindset would likely be a world without empathy, without progress, and without hope. Finding meaning in a nihilistic world. So, is there any way out of this nihilistic trap? Can we find meaning in a world that seems so indifferent? The good news is that many philosophers and thinkers have wrestled with this question and come up with some interesting ideas. One of the most famous responses to nihilism comes from existentialism, particularly the work of French philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre. Sartre argued that while life may not have inherent meaning, that doesn't mean we can't create our own meaning. In fact, he believed that we have the freedom and responsibility to define our own purpose in life. Instead of being paralyzed by the lack of meaning, we can embrace it as an opportunity to live authentically and make choices that reflect our own values and desires. Another philosopher, Albert Camus, took a similar approach with his concept of the absurd. Camus acknowledged that life is absurd, that we seek meaning in a universe that offers none, but rather than giving in to despair, he suggested we embrace the absurdity and live life fully anyway. In his famous work, The Myth of Sisyphus, Camus compares human existence to the Greek myth of Sisyphus, who is condemned to roll a boulder up a hill for eternity. Even though his task is pointless, Camus argues that Sisyphus can still find joy in the struggle itself. So, while nihilism might tell us that life has no inherent meaning, existentialists argue that it's up to us to create meaning through our actions, relationships, and experiences. Moving forward. Continued. So, where does that leave us? In a world where nihilism seems to be spreading like wildfire, the challenge isn't necessarily about escaping nihilism, but rather learning to live with it. The truth is, life can feel overwhelming, especially in an age where everything from climate change to political instability looms over us, but we can choose how we respond to these feelings of insignificance. Embrace the freedom of meaninglessness. One way to move forward is by reframing nihilism not as a curse, but as a form of liberation. When you let go of the pressure to find one grand, overarching meaning to life, you open yourself up to the possibility of creating your own sense of purpose. Maybe the universe doesn't care about you, but the relationships you build, the love you experience, and the work you put into the world can still matter deeply. In this way, nihilism doesn't have to be an excuse for despair, but rather an invitation to take full ownership of your life. Without predetermined meaning, you're free to decide what matters to you. Focus on human connections. One of the most powerful ways to combat the feeling of existential meaninglessness is through human connection. The relationships we cultivate with friends, family, and our communities can provide a sense of purpose, even in the face of nihilism. While nihilism suggests that nothing has intrinsic value, that doesn't mean we can't find value in the people we care about. Our connections to others, whether it's through love, empathy, or shared experiences, often feel more real and significant than any abstract philosophical idea. Even if the universe is indifferent, we don't have to be. In a world that can feel cold and meaningless, our bonds with others offer warmth and purpose. Engage in personal projects and passions. Another antidote to nihilism is engagement in meaningful work or creative pursuits. Even if life has no ultimate goal, we can find satisfaction and fulfillment in the things we create and the projects we dedicate ourselves to. Think about artists, musicians, or entrepreneurs. Many of them may not necessarily believe that their work holds cosmic significance, but that doesn't stop them from pouring their hearts into it. In the act of creation, whether it's a piece of art, a business, or even a hobby, we can find a kind of meaning that transcends the question of whether life itself has inherent purpose. Practice mindfulness and living in the moment. In a world that constantly pushes us to think about the future or ruminate on the past, mindfulness offers a way to ground ourselves in the present moment. When we become consumed by thoughts about the meaning of life or the fear of death, we lose sight of what's right in front of us, the here and now. By practicing mindfulness, we can learn to appreciate the simple, everyday experiences that make life enjoyable. Whether it's savoring a meal, enjoying a sunset, or sharing a laugh with a friend, focusing on the present can help us find moments of peace and contentment, even in a chaotic world. Explore philosophy and personal growth. Finally, one of the most effective ways to deal with the rise of nihilism is to engage with philosophy itself. Many people experience nihilistic thoughts because they've never really examined their beliefs or questioned the narratives they've been told. Philosophy offers a way to explore these existential questions in a deeper, more nuanced way. Whether you find comfort in existentialist thinkers like Sartre and Camus, or prefer the ancient wisdom of Stoicism, diving into philosophy can help you develop a more robust understanding of life's challenges. Personal growth is often about learning to face discomfort and uncertainty head-on, rather than avoiding it. By doing so, we can build resilience and create our own path forward, even in a world that doesn't give us clear answers. The role of hope in a nihilistic world. It's easy to get lost in the negative side of nihilism, but let's not forget that where there's nihilism, there can also be hope. Now, this may sound paradoxical. How can you have hope in a world that feels meaningless? But hope doesn't necessarily rely on a grand, universal meaning. Sometimes hope is found in small things, in the possibility of change, in the resilience of the human spirit, or in the beauty that still exists despite everything. Philosophers like Camus understood this well. In his philosophy of the absurd, he argued that while life might not have inherent meaning, the act of rebelling against that meaninglessness by living authentically can be a form of hope. It's the idea that even though the world might be indifferent, we can still choose to live with passion, with love, and with purpose. And hope can take many forms. It might be hope in humanity's ability to solve its greatest challenges, like climate change or social inequality. It might be hope in the small acts of kindness that we witness every day. Or it might be the quiet, personal hope that comes from knowing that, despite the struggles we face, life still offers moments of joy, connection, and beauty. Conclusion: navigating nihilism. As we come to the end of this video, we've covered a lot of ground. We've explored the rise of nihilism in modern society and how it manifests in everything from our pop culture to our personal lives. We've talked about the societal factors that have contributed to this rise, like the decline of religion, the overwhelming progress of technology, and the pressures of modern individualism. And we've examined the risks that come with nihilism, especially the danger of falling into apathy or despair. But we've also looked at ways we can confront and even thrive in the face of nihilism. Whether it's embracing the freedom that comes with creating our own meaning, building deep human connections, or simply finding joy in the small things, there are paths forward. Nihilism may be on the rise, but it doesn't have to define us. In fact, it can be a wake-up call, a reminder that we have the power to shape our lives, to seek out meaning in the places that matter to us, and to find hope even in the most unexpected moments. So, what now? How do we move forward from here? That's up to you. Life might not come with an instruction manual, but that doesn't mean we're lost. It means we're free to write our own stories, to create our own paths, and to find our own reasons to keep going. And in the end, maybe that's all the meaning we need. Hey, if you liked this video, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel so I can feel a little more hopeful in this nihilistic world. Thanks for watching.